As you can see, we are not in our normal filming location. That is because we are on the east side of the mountains in Moses Lake, Washington, to test out the Chevy Colorado ZR2 Bison. This is in collaboration with AEV, American Expedition Vehicles, and Chevy to bring you this Bison package. Now, this package, when you equip your ZR2, is over $11,000 extra on top of the already $50,000 truck. So what does this offer you? We're gonna test these things out today. We're gonna do a quick overview right now before we head out. Now we're even gonna be able to tow test this vehicle, as this has the lowest tow rating out of any of the Colorados in the lineup. All right, so let's take a closer look and see what the Bison really is on top of the ZR2 package. So if you want to come in, we'll take a look at the front end first. So ZR2 gets this flow tie grill right here. So you have a Chevy logo that actually has an active pass-through. That is not exclusive to the Bison, that is on the ZR2, but we still have it here on the Bison. Down below, this is exclusive for the Bison. This is a steel bumper. So we have a steel bumper in the front, we have a steel bumper in the rear, and we also have steel rock sliders on the side. Now that isn't the only protection you have. You have front, rear, side, and you also have underneath. Down below, it's gonna be really hard to see down there. We'll take a closer look when we can get a better angle. We have boron steel skid plates. So they are very thick, very protective, and they pretty much go from the front engine all the way back. We have a rear diff cover, we have a transmission cover, engine cover, and a fuel tank skid plate. So plenty of underbody protection where needed. Now let's come around to the side. This is another feature that makes the Bison different from the ZR2, and these are Goodyear Territory mud terrains. These are 315/70 17s. These are massive mud terrains, 35-inch tires, 17-inch beadlock capable wheels from AEV, with a nice AEV stamping right there in the middle hubcap, or center cap, sorry. And then inboard, like it is a ZR2, so you get the Multimatic DSSV shocks, but on top of that, we also get the Multimatic jounce bumpers. So jounce bumpers is just a fancy word for a hydraulic bump stop. We get those in the front, we get those in the rear as well. So we get these 35-inch tires, and able to fit these, we have to have a 0.5-inch lift on top of the already 3-inch lift that the ZR2 is equipped with. And that is just to be able to fit those 35-inch tires. So if we come around to the side, we have steel rock guards here, very heavy duty. So if you really get on those, if you smack a rock or something like that, that is going to save you a ton of money, because if you hit these rocker panels, that is an expensive repair. Now this is the Bison, so you get this spare tire carrier in the rear. A very cool look, and it kind of brings a lot of attention to this truck. And then on the rear, we have an AEV badge over on the passenger side. Then again, we have this steel bumper. You still retain your parking sensors in the back. You have recovery hooks in the back. Still, you have your trailer pin connectors here. Speaking of, we are trailering Scott's side-by-side over to an off-road park. This is about a 4,500 pound trailer, and this has a 5,500 pound tow rating. The regular ZR2 has about a 6,000 pound tow rating and up to 7,700 on certain models of the Colorado when you select the max trailering package. So this is the least amount of towing capability in the Colorado lineup, but the most off-road capability. So we're gonna see how that balances out today. So as we pull onto the highway, we are gonna really put this drivetrain to the test. Now we do have a 5,500 pound tow rating on the ZR2 Bison, 500 down from the 6,000 pound tow rating of the normal ZR2. Now let's talk about that here in a second. But the engine that is powering this truck is the Turbo Max motor. So we get 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. So it's the same powertrain in the ZR2 as it is in the Bison. Now, we also add 35-inch mud terrains, a half-inch lift, and a little bit more weight, about 300 to 400 pounds more weight, with those steel bumpers and those beefy skid plates. So let's talk about that real quick. So we have a 342 rear gear in the ZR2. They do not change it going to the ZR2 Bison, which in my opinion, they should have. They should have gone to like a 373 to give you just a little bit more oomph to this powertrain. Each tire is heavier than the 33-inch that you'd find on the ZR2, so much so that it's 7.62 pounds per tire, or a total of 30.5 extra pounds for these 35-inch tires of rotational mass. So that's quite a bit, plus the fact that it's a half-inch higher, you have extra weight. I wish Chevy would have given us the extra rear gear. Now, once you're at highway speeds, I'm cruising, I'm locked out at about 1,500 RPM at 70 miles an hour. So really this powertrain handles towing on highway very well. Where you're gonna notice the issues is down below where this little 4-cylinder doesn't really have that grunt like a V8 would or an inline 6 turbo diesel or whatever it may be. It's not going to have that grunt that you'd really want if towing all the time. But if you're going to be occasionally towing, this might be the truck for you. We're going to take the Colorado out today and see how it does. But first off, let's talk about how it towed. So we did 47.3 miles getting here. There was a little bit of hill, but it's mostly downhill, coasting, braking. We did 47.4 miles at 12.3 miles per gallon. So really not too shabby, to be honest with you. The fact that this is a 4-cylinder being able to tow nearly 6,000 pounds. Right now we're at about 5,000 pounds, around that area, and it's still got 12 miles per gallon. Now, if there was like a mountain pass in front of us where there was a substantial uphill, that number would be drastically lower. But for the fact of the matter is, the thing has a 3.5-inch lift over stock and 35-inch tires, towing 4,500 to 5,000 pounds. 12.3 miles per gallon is not too shabby. I would give a grade rating of a B+ to the Colorado for towing, because realistically, 4,500 pounds for a mid-sized truck is not anything to scoff at. I mean, that being able to tow 12.3 miles per gallon and me not necessarily really feel it behind me. I didn't feel any sway, I didn't feel any pulling or anything like that. But we're gonna park up, get all the side-by-sides off, and then we're gonna take off into the hills. We're gonna see if this can keep up and see. All right, before we head on the trail, Scott's airing down one of these tires. They were at about 38, 39 PSI. We're using the screen inside to be able to tell us what PSI we were at. We're going down into the Columbia River Basin. So there's a little bit of a dune park off the side of the highway that we're going down to right now. You can get to it from the road, but that's no fun. So we're up in Saddle Mountain getting down to that same dune part, but just so blown away how settled this truck feels over rough terrain. I've driven the Nissan Frontier Pro 4X. I've driven the TRD Offroad, TRD Pro, both the 4Runner and the Tacoma for mid-size vehicles. And this by far handles it better than any of those vehicles by a wide margin. I mean, this truck is really meant for like mid-speed to high speed. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a high-speed desert runner, but they put those jounce bumpers on there, those hydraulic bump stops, in case you do find the end of your suspension. So you'd primarily find that in those mid to high speed settings. And out here in Eastern Washington, you have some space to stretch the legs of the vehicle. And we did just that just a minute ago, and it handles it so well. The further and further we get down here, the more and more shelves we have dropping off. So I'm gonna shift down into low. So I'm in 4 high right now. Shifted down into low to try to preserve some of the brakes. So right now I'm in 4 low gear, and I'm in terrain mode. So the auto braking to help me go down this is substantial. I got my front camera on because there is going to be a pretty heavy drop coming up here in just a second. And I can look at that front camera and I can see exactly where I'm at. So the sliders of those rock guard protectors might come into play right about here. The front bumper is going to go over. Nope, we cleared it. Rear tire is going down it. Wow, that was a 20-degree pitch going down that. I am very impressed with this terrain mode. I mean, the auto braking and just the assistance that this truck is providing you while off-road is insane. I didn't even have to put my foot on the brake back there when I was at 20 degrees. It was just already locking those brakes up, bringing me to a complete stop, and a very confident stop too. That is something to be said too, because sometimes if you slam on the brakes too hard, this shaly rock, and if you don't know what shale rock is, think of like a flat dinner plate, and those are just like stacked on top of each other. So when you stop too hard, you'll kind of slide forward. You stop on one plate and it'll slide across the other. So handling this very well. So when you're out here towing around with the side-by-sides, you really have to be on your A game with looking at the terrain you're going over, because sometimes these side-by-sides, they have a ton of power and they create these huge whoops like this. And if you're not careful in a vehicle that has a much longer wheelbase than a side-by-side, well, I guess 4-doors have pretty long wheelbases, but you have to be very careful because those side-by-sides, those whoops will tear up your vehicle if you're not careful. You either have to accelerate over them or you have to go real slow. And so sometimes you're gonna find yourself in a situation where you gotta make that split-second decision, and luckily, with these jounce bumpers that are on this vehicle, we really don't have to do it as much as a normal truck that doesn't have those. So we're on some silty sand right now, and this is just, we're just floating now. Turn on my front camera. It's very useful in this situation.
Go ahead.
did it. I did not think I was gonna make it up that. So as you can see, we have made it to the dune part. As I was talking about, we started on the other side of this mountain. This is called Saddle Mountain. I don't know if this specifically is called Saddle Mountain, but the area we're in is Saddle Mountain. So we started over there, went up to a cell site, and that's where I started recording going downhill. I want to talk about what we've done so far. So we've done high speed, kind of bumpy, jostly, as you could say. Handles it incredibly. And then we go downhill, so we get to test out the terrain mode where it auto brakes for you and helps with the throttle and throttle mapping and brake mapping. And it just handled it so well. I actually wasn't even in that mode for quite a few minutes. And then once I went into the terrain mode, I didn't even have to worry about the brakes. Yes, I was being aware and like kept my foot by the brakes, but it does everything for you so well. And it really drives a lot of confidence into you when you are in such a sketchy situation. There was one point we were coming around a tight bend. We were not only 18 to 20 degrees tilted forward, we were also tilting off to the side. And so those two things combined can be pretty scary, especially when it starts lifting up that left rear wheel. Unfortunately, it was almost too steep for Grace or anybody in their side-by-sides to abandon their ride and come film, but it just handled it so well. It got me out of that situation, got me down here to the dunes. Any other vehicle would rattle apart. My GX has $5,000, $7,000 suspension on it. It'd rattle apart in something like this. Now we did air down the tires, but this DSSV multi-matic suspension paired with those hydraulic bump stops is just making for such a clean ride. But this is one of very few vehicles on the market that you get front and rear lockers, you get a great terrain management system, you also get hydraulic bump stops and external reservoir tuned suspension from DSSV or multi-matic. It's incredible suspension, crazy bump stops, and this is just outshining any vehicle I've driven. I know I'm sounding like a fangirl, but this is actually blowing my mind. Anyone that gets in the truck is saying the same thing. So right now we're gonna eat some lunch. We're gonna let the truck rest for a little bit. Then we're gonna head that way, crawl out of the hill, and then we're gonna get to the uphill portion of this, which I am actually kind of terrified for. But I have no doubt all of the goodies that AEV has put onto this vehicle, including these 35-inch mud terrains, I'm gonna get out of that no problem. Yes, I'll be sweating, stressed, and tired by the end of the night. So let's go eat some lunch and then get out of here. And I got my off-road terrain screen on right now. So we have the Baja screen, terrain screen, as well as overlanding. Terrain is gonna be what we want. So we have our pitch, our roll, and our tire pressures on each side, what drive mode we're in down the bottom left. And then if we hit this camera button on the side of it, it'll bring up our cameras, our 360 surround view cameras that are equipped on this vehicle, as well as underbody cameras. This thing does have the $500 optional underbody cameras. All right. So let's pull up here. I'm gonna keep the differentials unlocked right now. So right now we are in 4 low, in drive mode terrain. We have our tires air down to 19 to 20 PSI. We're gonna bring up our cameras because we don't really care about our pitch and roll right now. We're gonna take this nice and slow. So we're gonna have driver front left. He's gonna climb up. Ooh, that's a little butt pucker moment. Okay, I'm gonna lock my both differentials because I do not want to rock on this portion. All right, differential's locked. It's climbing up that, no problem. Ooh! This is a little bit of a tight turn to have both differentials locked. But I'm just gonna crawl right on up it in this ZR2 Bison. Ooh, that was nothing for this thing. Now, in terms of ground clearance, the ZR2 Bison has 12.2. That's up from the 10.7 that is on the ZR2. It gets a ½ inch bump from the tires, and it gets a ½ inch bump from the suspension in order to fit those 35-inch tires. So 12.2 inches of suspension, or 12.2 inches of ground clearance, sorry, plenty to get us over any of the obstacles. Today, we have not yet found the extent of our ground clearance, and that is a good thing because we do not want to damage this vehicle, but we want to be able to test it, and that's what we're doing right now. We are through the hard portion, had some fun down in the dunes, did a hard rock crawl at nearly 18 degrees or almost 20 degrees upward with some side angle traction control kicking in. And we're just gonna get up to this cell tower, and it's pretty easy cruising from then on out. We are on a very rough road, but the suspension is just soaking it up. There is no creaks, no rattles, no dings, no nothing in this interior, which is something to be said about the build quality of this ZR2 Bison. Now, I don't know if it's because it's the Bison. I would say that it's most likely just GM build quality at this portion of the game. I'm just so impressed with how solid, how refined this truck is.
If you're looking to get your hands on a Colorado ZR2, you're going to be looking to spend around $48,000, including destination. But if you're wanting to take the already capable ZR2 trim to the next level, the Bison package is here to offer that, but it does come at a price. From $48,000 to $62,000 is where you're going to be sitting to get that Bison package. But that is not where the price tag ends, because Chevy does offer over $11,000 in added-on accessories and packages available for purchase. Packages like a convenience, a technology, and for the Bison, you get a recovery package available, which will get you a 12,500 pound recovery winch installed in your steel front bumper. Now there's other things like a steel drive shaft available, underbody cameras, auxiliary lighting, and premium sound systems that are all optional. Now a lot of options are going to be available here on the Chevy, but you're not going to find similar items on other manufacturers' trucks, and that's where Chevy really sets themselves apart. They're really trying to prove a point and make a name for themselves within this off-road segment, and I think they're doing an incredible job, because other manufacturers don't really have trucks as capable as the ZR2 Bison. If you're looking for something that might be able to hold a candle to the capability offered here in the Bison package, well, the only 3 trucks within this segment that might be able to provide that are going to be the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, the Ford Ranger Raptor, and the Jeep Gladiator Mojave X. The Toyota Tacoma has undergone a full redesign back in 2024. The outside, the inside, and the drivetrain have all changed. The outside design characteristics have been made a lot more aggressive to kind of fit the bill, especially with the TRD Pro trim. It just fits the capability and the styling nicely together. And it's definitely a similar situation with the Colorado, especially when paired with the ZR2 trim and the Bison package. The capabilities are incredible, and the exterior styling kind of matches that. It's very loud with the 35-inch tires, those steel bumpers, and that spare tire in the bed. Me personally, I think I like the styling on the Colorado just a little bit more, even in other trims, than I do this newest generation Tacoma. Now on the inside of the Tacoma, it has been made a lot more utilitarian, and the materials are a lot more durable feeling, and it's laid out just a little bit different. Now technology-wise, the Tacoma is going to be fully packed with technology, as it is the top trim. On the flip side, the ZR2 is not going to be fully loaded. You are going to have to equip packages during the purchasing process, whether it be the convenience package, the technology package, which gets you the 360 camera and the adaptive cruise control, things that you are going to have to add on to the price of the vehicle. But even if you equip a ZR2 with the Bison package, the convenience, technology, and the safety package, and the premium sound, you are still going to come in under the starting price of a TRD Pro at $65,000. Now the Tacoma is going to come fully loaded with all that technology, but where it starts to fall off is the space. Now the Tacoma was already a small vehicle in the back seat. They add in those isodynamic seats for the TRD Pro trim. It's like a suspension system for the seat. It takes away a little bit of legroom, so if you want the most legroom possible, you're going to want to go for the Colorado, as it does have more space than the Tacoma alternative. Now in the suspension department, that is going to be what's going to tell us if it's going to be as capable or even hold any sort of comparison to the ZR2 Bison off-road. And with the Tacoma, for the 2025 model, you're going to get the 2.5-inch Fox shocks, and in the front, you are going to have compression adjustments, and in the back, it's going to be a multi-link coil sprung rear end with hydraulic bump stops. You aren't going to get any hydraulic bump stops in the front of the vehicle. Now, one other important thing to point out is the fact that the Tacoma TRD Pro only has a rear locker. There is no front locker, and that might be due to the fact it is a hybrid. Now that brings us to our next point. We're going to talk about the fuel economy, because the Tacoma gets 23 miles per gallon combined instead of the 16 that we get out of the Chevy. Now the 23 miles per gallon combined also pairs with that hybrid power. You're going to have decent horsepower and a lot of torque. It's also going to have a better towing capacity, a better payload capacity, and get you that extra miles per gallon when you are talking about combined driving. Now, even though the Tacoma has those 2.5-inch Fox shocks and that lift, the 33-inch tires, it's not going to have as good a ground clearance as the Chevy. The approach angle, the departure angle, and the breakover angle are all going to be greater on the Chevy Colorado ZR2 Bison. So if you're looking for the best capability off-road compared to the Tacoma, the Chevy is still the clear winner. The Ford Ranger has also been under the knife recently, with this latest design being a lot more understated and mature feeling than the other trucks that we are talking about. The Colorado with the Bison package is very brash and in your face with the 35-inch tires, the exterior body protection, and the spare tire in the bed. The Tacoma is going to be a lot more angular and futuristic feeling, while the Gladiator is just going to be large and boxy feeling. So if you're looking for something that might appeal to a older or more mature audience, you might be looking at the Ranger as your best bet. Now the Ranger Raptor is going to look like all your other Rangers out from afar. Once you get close, you're going to notice the wider hips, the wider shoulders, and different aspects in terms of the grille and little fender vents off to the side. It's going to look like a mini F-150 Raptor. But when you move on to the inside, you're going to have all the premium materials and features that you're going to want out of a top trim like the Raptor. Now that is all going to be standard, the tablet style Sync 4A screen, the premium sound system, but what isn't going to be groundbreaking is the interior space. You're going to have 1.5 inches less of combined legroom compared to the Colorado, and you're also going to have less headroom. Now the suspension is going to be more catered towards that high-speed desert running with the 2.5-inch live valve Fox shocks all around. You're going to have a multi-link coil sprung rear end, but instead of a panhard bar like you normally have on a multi-link coil sprung rear end, you're going to have a Watts link. So instead of having one panhard bar that comes off the frame to the axle, you're going to have two different points coming to the axle with a pivot point in the middle, and that's going to keep the axle a lot more in line in all articulation scenarios. Now you're not going to have jounce bumpers or hydraulic bump stops on the front or the rear. That's all going to be done by polyurethane bushings and valving within the shock. Again, it's going to be more meant for high-speed desert running, but you do have front and rear lockers in the Ranger Raptor, so if you find yourself in a crawling situation, it will be able to handle that. Now, where it really starts to shine compared to the Colorado is going to be the powertrain department, as this does have the 3-liter EcoBoost that pumps out over 405 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. It's going to get you better towing capacity at 5,500 pounds, better payload at 1,400 pounds, and better miles per gallon at 17 instead of the 16 that you get out of the Colorado. Now, if you're looking for the best ground clearance, approach angle, and departure angle, you are not going to find it here in the Ranger Raptor, as it has 1.5 inches less of ground clearance than the ZR2 Bison. Now, believe it or not, the Jeep Gladiator and the Colorado ZR2 Bison share some similarities. Now, that similarity is the company AEV, American Expedition Vehicles, produced the Gladiator before it was even introduced. But they called it the Brute. They took a Wrangler, stretched the frame, put a truck bed on it, and sold it to the public for quite a high price, but they used it with licensing from Jeep themselves. That same company gives us the Bison package on the Colorado that not only improves the capabilities, but also makes it look pretty good as well. Now, on the inside of the Jeep, it is going to be pretty up to date in terms of technology, but the only downside is that the Mojave trim does not offer a 360 camera system. That will not be offered on this trim, so if you want that, you're going to have to look at other trims or a whole different vehicle. Now, technology, you're going to get the Uconnect system that is fairly snappy, but you are going to have a smaller, shorter screen. It's going to be a little bit wider than the other screens, but it's going to be a tad bit shorter as well, just a different aspect ratio. Now, on the inside, you're also going to have less legroom than the Colorado, with 4 inches less in the front seats. You're going to have plenty of headroom because of that boxy shape, but the legroom is going to be the biggest issue if you're taller than 5'10". The Mojave X is going to start out at $63,000 and top out over $74,000, which is about $1,000 more than a fully loaded ZR2 Bison. So it is quite pricey, and for me personally, I don't find the quality to match up with the price point. So it just really is dependent on what you are searching for in your vehicle. For me, that kind of price, $74,000, I want just a little bit more quality in terms of fit and finish throughout the vehicle. Now, Jeep calls the Mojave and the Mojave X desert rated, and the reason they say that is because it's equipped with Fox 2.5-inch internal bypass shocks in all four corners. You're going to get jounce bumpers in the back. You're going to ditch a front locker and a disconnecting sway bar, but in turn, you're going to get that more high-speed catering for those desert situations. But if you want something more rock crawling, definitely go for the Rubicon trim. Now, on the Mojaves, you're going to get Dana 44 heavy-duty axles front and rear. You're going to get 33-inch all-terrain tires, and for the X, you get a couple of special things. You get front and rear steel bumpers. You get bedside protectors, so if you hit a rock on the bedside, it's not going to damage it. You're also going to get a full-time transfer case, so you can drive in 4 auto. It's what they call Select Track, and that way you can leave it in 4 auto, and it'll kick in 4-wheel drive when needed. Now, the other thing you're also going to get on the Mojave X is a front camera. Like I mentioned, no 360, but you're going to get a front camera on the X and a rear camera for your backup scenarios. Now, another thing that the Gladiator is retaining other trucks are not that we've talked about is a naturally aspirated power plant. It's going to be a 3.6-liter Pentastar V6, gets you 285 horsepower and gets you 19 miles per gallon combined. It's also going to tow the most at 7,000 pounds and have the highest payload at 1,710 pounds. It's It's going to have the best approach angle and departure angle because on the Jeeps, those wheels are pushed out to the furthest corners, and you're definitely going to find that that's beneficial in those scenarios. But since it does have a 6-inch longer wheelbase than the Colorado, the breakover angle is not as great, as well as the ground clearance is a little bit more than an inch less than what the Colorado is offering. Now that is going to do it for my time talking about all of these trucks and how they stack up against the Bison. Leave your comments down below on which truck you would choose. Which do you think is more capable, and which would you like to see me take off-road next? I hope you guys enjoyed this off-road video. It was a ton of fun to make, a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun to make, and I really enjoyed telling you guys about this beautiful, very capable ZR2 Bison. And until the next video, my name is Nick with Auto Buyer's Guide. I will talk to you guys then.